Is it really possible to create psychedelic-like experiences through breathing alone? I want to talk to you today about one of the most fascinating areas of emerging research and practice in the world of breathwork and modern wellness and healing today. Something that sits at the intersection of trauma-informed healing, modern wellness, and the psychedelic renaissance. This is conscious connected breathing. In this video, I want to talk to you about what conscious connected breathing is, how to have a safe and impactful experience of it, where it comes from, and what is going on in your brain and body when we dive into these experiences. Recent research in the last couple of years has found that conscious connected breathing can create mystical and non-ordinary states of consciousness on par with medium to high doses of psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. So let's dive under the surface. But what is it? And what's it really all about? Conscious connected breathing is a particular technique in the name given to a style of high ventilation breathing practices. What I mean by that is these are breathing practices typically done laying down. They can be practiced seated, but typically laying down. They are either done one-to-one with a trained facilitator or in a group. You can also do these practices at home, but the safest and most powerful way to experience them is in person with a trained facilitator. We then move into this high ventilation practice. This is where we increase the rate, depth, and volume of breathing, usually done by breathing in and out through an open mouth for a sustained period of time, between 20 and 90 minutes for a typical session. It's through this sustained, circular, connected pattern of breathing where we're taking an active inhale and connecting that into a soft exhale that we start to see this non-ordinary state open up and people have powerful experiences that can be truly transformative. I've been facilitating experiences of conscious connected breathwork for the last 6 years, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people have genuinely life-altering experiences through this practice. So where does this actually come from? Conscious connected breathing is nothing new. It hasn't always been called that, but it has its roots in ancient indigenous traditions, from the Amazon, Central and South America, to Africa and indigenous cultures there, all the way across to Asia and East Asia in the yogic traditions. Ancient traditions around the world have been getting high on their own supply for as long as we know about. Ancient indigenous traditions have been using the breath to create these expanded states of consciousness, to tap into higher altered states of being for centuries. In the Western world, the first notable use of breathwork in this way started in the 60s and 70s in the psychedelic renaissance. Stan Grof and his wife Christina were some of the original LSD researchers, and they were exploring the role of LSD in creating powerful non-ordinary states for healing. When the war on drugs came to the US and Stan Grof had all of his drugs taken away, he scoured the world looking to find ways of creating similar states of consciousness without substances. This is where he first discovered breathwork and created the school of holotropic breathing that exists to this day. However, these forms of breathwork for a long time have been typically confined to the realms of the spiritual, these fringe communities. But in recent years, in the last 10 years or so, we've seen a resurgence in the rise of breathwork. You might have seen some of the videos online of people having these deep, profound experiences that are often very emotional on social media and online. And as we see this second psychedelic renaissance beginning to happen with all of the investment and research flooding into that space for healing and mental health, we're also starting to see breathwork boom in the same way. And my role and the work that I'm doing at the moment is really in exploring how we can make this a legitimate therapeutic practice. It has so much potential for change and for good, but only when practiced in a safe and responsible way. So let's talk a little bit about the science of conscious connected breathing. What is actually going on? And as I mentioned earlier on, there's a lot more research now happening in this space, and we're starting to understand a lot more about it. When we work with a high ventilation breathwork pattern, like conscious connected breathing, for that sustained period of time, we start to create a number of physiological shifts. But the first domino, the first key that seems to unlock the unfolding of this altered state of consciousness is lowering blood CO2 levels. When we breathe in this way, when we increase the rate, the depth, and the volume of breathing, we start to drop our CO2 levels. And it seems to be this that opens up a cascade of physiological and psychological experiences and effects that create this non-ordinary state. Most notably, we start to see a reduction in cerebral blood flow. We get a reduced flow of blood to the brain, and we start to create mild hypoxic conditions in the brain. That is a low oxygen environment in the brain. And we start to see different parts of the brain becoming more active and others becoming less active. From our current understanding, it seems to suggest that we are getting a downregulation, a quietening in the ruminative parts of the brain, the default mode network, which is the part of the brain that grows quieter during psychedelic experiences. Research has also found increases in activity in the sense of the brain associated with emotional processing. And this is why we often find the experience can be quite emotional with conscious connected breathing. The best summary that I heard from my friend and colleague Martin McPhillamy of the state that we're creating through conscious connected breathing is that we are creating a trance-like hypnotic state where unconscious material can surface to be processed. So from a healing perspective, we are turning down the volume on the parts of the brain that may be protecting us from unconscious material that could be keeping us stuck in looping patterns of behavior. And when we go into these experiences, we are setting that aside for a moment, turning down the dial on those protective parts, and we can allow that material to come to the surface. And when that is done in a safe container, we can recalibrate and recontextualize our relationship to that material, which can be an incredibly profound opportunity for healing and personal development. While the science is important, what is even more interesting and important to understand is the experience itself. If you're going to go out into the world and have an experience of breathwork like this, it's really important that you understand what you're getting yourself in for and understand also what might show up for you through the experience. So a typical experience, as I said, will be anywhere from 20 to 90 minutes, either one-on-one with a facilitator or in a group. A safe and effective experience will always begin with a safe set and setting. These are terms that we borrow from the world of psychedelics. The set is your mindset going into the experience. Do you feel pretty stable, pretty steady, pretty sturdy entering into that experience? You don't have to feel amazing by any means, but just feeling like you can hold and meet any uncomfortable material that might show up for you through the experience. The setting, as the name suggests, is the environment that you're in. Does it feel safe? Do you feel safe in the presence of the other people, the facilitator, and the actual space and setting itself? It's also important to think about your nervous system state. Are you feeling really overwhelmed and agitated as you enter into that experience, or do you have a level of capacity and resourcing within yourself to enter into that experience? At the beginning of a session, I will always lead people through 10 to 15 minutes of grounding. We'll use the breath to calm the nervous system, to ease any apprehension, any anxiety, any nerves, and bring someone into a state of greater calm within themselves. From there, we would then move into the conscious connected breathwork. This is where we start to breathe with an open mouth at a higher tempo, higher volume. There are some schools of breathwork that teach an incredibly high volume and high speed style of this breath. For me, I don't think that's necessary, and we're going to talk in just a sec about how to have a safe and impactful experience. So we go into the conscious connected breath. You'll be in there for anywhere between 20 to 60 minutes typically. As you start to go deeper into the experience, a number of things can start to unfold. Typically, it can be quite a physical experience. Because of the shifts that we're creating in blood chemistry, blood gas levels, you might start to notice tingling in your extremities. You might start to notice changes in body temperature, certain sensations coming to the surface on a very physical level. You might also notice something that shows up every now and then called tetany. This is due to a change in our calcium levels within the body, where people experience cramping or clawing in the hands. In short doses, this isn't harmful, and your body will always return to baseline again. However, it can be a little bit disconcerting, a little bit uncomfortable. And the best way to avoid tetany in a breathwork session is to make sure that your exhale is nice and soft and not overly forced. If we're super heavy on the exhale, that's where we start to get cramping and clawing in the hands. The second possible experience that often shows up for people is something I mentioned already, the emotional side of the experience. It can be a cathartic experience, an opportunity to clear, process, and integrate emotional charge that you're holding within the body, or from memories or material that might be held within the unconscious and the subconscious mind. This can be challenging, this can be uncomfortable. It's not always an easy ride, but the beauty and the magic of these experiences, when they are well held, is that you're in a safe container both within your own body and within the physical space that you're in, to meet that material through a new lens, to hold yourself and be held by the facilitation team in a way that allows you to meet it through that different lens, recalibrate and recontextualize your relationship with it, to integrate it in an effective and meaningful way. The third thing, it can be more classically psychedelic. You might get memories coming to the surface, visions, patterns, colors, all kinds of interesting levels of insight and openness at a psychological level. It can also show up in a number of ways similar to psychedelics, with things like ego dissolution or sense of time and space getting slightly warped. People often feel what we call in the psychedelic field this sense of oceanic boundlessness, which is where the boundaries between you and the world around you, between the consciousness that lives inside of you and the consciousness that lives outside of you, starts to merge and blend, and this feeling of deep peace and oneness and sometimes bliss that can come with that. But the experience isn't always explosive and expansive. It can be deeply calm and meditative as well. Sometimes people have the most peaceful ride, and that is often just what they need. Exactly as we say in psychedelic experiences, we often don't get what we want, we get what we need. As you come to the end of the experience with the conscious connected breathing, the facilitator will typically guide you into another period of grounding and integration. Integration is an important word here. How do we take what we have felt, what we have processed, what we have integrated, and take something with us? How do we actually lead into lasting change going forward? That doesn't have to happen there and then, in the moment, at the end of the session, but we start to lay the groundwork to bring us back into our bodies, back into a level of physical and psychological coherence and balance, so that we can begin to understand the experience, to integrate it. Integration, I always say, is the difference between an experience that helps us temporarily escape our reality and one that helps us change our reality. So the experience from start to finish follows a bit of a bell curve. We start with grounding, nice and gentle. We then go into the experience. It might peak around halfway, and then we settle back into grounding before going on our way again. Let's talk about the science again here for a second, because I often find myself feeling a little boring talking about safety. But psychological safety is the number one factor in having a meaningful experience with breathwork. I know it's easy to think it's just breathing. How risky could it be? But with great power comes great responsibility. These experiences can be incredibly, wonderfully powerful for change. But with that comes a level of risk. We have to be safe. There are certain psychological and physiological contraindications that would block someone from taking part in this. Things like epilepsy, history of seizures or strokes, early pregnancy, cardiovascular issues, hypertension, and many, many more. So it's always important, if you are thinking about exploring this kind of breath work, to check with your doctor if you have any doubts at all, and to check with the facilitator. The science tells us that the more intensely we drop carbon dioxide in our system, the way we would do that would be breathing more quickly, more deeply, and at a faster rate. The way we would do that would be higher volume and higher speed, the deeper we go into the altered state of consciousness. So it'd be easy to say as a facilitator or as a participant, cool, I want to have a trip, I'm going to go hard and fast. The only challenge with that, well, not the only challenge, but one of the big challenges with that is that is a surefire way to destabilize your system. When we breathe quickly, we are creating more charge and activation in the nervous system. And if your system isn't equipped to hold that, we're going to be pushing ourselves into an uncomfortable place unnecessarily. You can have a profound, deep, transformative experience, still going gently. And we often talk about titration in these experiences. We gently titrate, bit by bit, some intensity into your system so that you can learn how to hold it. so you can hold that unconscious material and stand a genuine chance of integrating it. Some other final things to think about before potentially going out into the world and exploring this and experiencing this for yourself. We talked about psychological safety. Psychological safety is key. Breathwork is still an unregulated industry. So please, it's on you as a consumer ultimately to do your due diligence on the person that you're stepping into a space with. If you want to check their training, if you want to just check how it feels to be around them, you need to make sure that you are going to be safe in this experience, because harm can occur in any experience of altered states of consciousness if they're not held safely and responsibly. It's not to scare you off, but please just be intentional and mindful with how you go about experiencing and exploring this work. So there you have it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I genuinely believe, having experienced it myself in my own journey and through facilitating thousands of people over the last 6 years, that breathwork is the sharp point of the psychedelic renaissance. It's the sharp point of how we can support ourselves through non-ordinary states of consciousness for healing and growth. And it can lead the way in the psychedelic renaissance.